Hi, I'm Meg Callahan with Infectious Disease Special Edition, and I'm here with Sean Von Wick, who is the Chief Medical Officer of ViiV Healthcare. And there's a lot of ViiV research going on at CROI 2026, where we are today. And I thought I'd start off by asking you about the Clarity study, talking about injection site reactions and tolerability between cabotegravir and lenacapavir. And I was at ID Week, and I got to kind of touch a dummy myself, that I got to understand what that might feel like for someone who had received the medication. But can you talk a little bit about the results, what you found in patients?
Sure. And thank you for having me. So the Clarity study is a study that was specifically designed to look at tolerability and acceptability of these long-acting injectable medications. So one is cabotegravir, it's given intramuscularly in the butt, and the other one, lenacapavir, which is given subcutaneously, and usually that's on the abdomen. So it's two very different ways of giving antiretroviral medication. And those medications have never been studied against each other in a clinical trial. So we thought it would be important to understand what the injection site tolerability and acceptance could be for these two different ways of giving medication. So we included about 61 individuals into the trial. It was a phase 1 study. They got one injection, and then they crossed over, and then they got the other injection 4 weeks later. So they had both, and they could compare the two. So they were their own controls in a way. Yeah. So 30 each in each arm, and then they crossed over. And what we found was that the intramuscular injection with cabotegravir had a higher proportion of people that found it mostly or totally acceptable compared to lenacapavir, and that was driven by a number of reasons. Pain was one of the reasons. They felt it was less painful, but also I think more commonly was the fact that the visible side effects were more obvious with lenacapavir. So it's subcutaneously given, and it forms nodules. It's part of, there's a drug depot, but there's also inflammatory reaction around it. So there's a nodule in many patients. So that's what they experience: nodule, redness, swelling, induration, and all of that together is why I think the majority of people preferred the cabotegravir injection. So I think it's a single shot of each medication. So there's limitations to the study that we have to also acknowledge. But it is an important data point because people need to understand what the potential side effect profiles of medications are so that they can make an informed choice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And there's much more data being presented about cabotegravir at this conference. Talking about the Volition trial, starting patients on Dovato and then asking if they wanted to switch or not. And you kind of found that many people wanted to switch.
Yes.
So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Volition is a really nicely designed study. So we included people who are antiretroviral naive, so they've never taken medication before. And they were started on Dovato, which is a 2-drug combination of dolutegravir and lamivudine. And then the moment they became undetectable, so the viral load was suppressed, they were given a free choice. Do you want to stay on your oral medication, which is taken daily, or do you want to switch to cabotegravir and rilpivirine, which is a 2-monthly injection? And it was great to see, but 85% of people chose to go onto the long-acting medication. And then we continued to follow them for a year to look at effectiveness, efficacy, and tolerability generally. And that was all consistent with what we've seen in the clinical trials before. So I think the important thing about this study, again, is about patient-informed choice. So don't assume that you know what a patient or a person living with HIV would want in their therapy, because there's many unmet medical needs that might not be obvious to a physician or a clinician prescribing the medication. So have the conversation and help people make an informed choice by helping them understand the data. There's pros and cons of each, and let people choose what they think would fit their lifestyle best.
Yeah, you have other research talking about metabolic changes and weight gain or lack thereof. Could you maybe talk about paso doble?
Yes. So paso doble. So we are seeing the 96-week data from that study. We've previously seen the primary outcomes at week 48. So paso doble is the largest study that was specifically designed, randomized controlled prospective study, so very rigorously done, to evaluate metabolic health outcomes. Weight gain was one of them. And now this at week 96, we're looking at something called liver steatosis, so fatty liver. And what we saw at week 48, the two regimens that are being compared against each other is the 2-drug regimen Dovato, dolutegravir lamivudine, and the 3-drug regimen bictegravir FTC TAF. And the hypothesis was that maybe there could be differences in metabolic outcomes because there's the addition of TAF in that 3-drug regimen. So at week 48, we found that there's significantly higher weight gain in people on bictegravir FTC TAF. And now at week 96, we found that there's also a higher proportion of people that have fatty liver, steatotic hepatic steatosis. And that is an important finding because fatty liver is associated with potentially long-term morbidity. People with fatty liver is associated with development of diabetes, for example, over time. Not everybody gets it, but there is a very positive correlation there. Also, if it's severe, it could lead to cirrhosis eventually, and that's also associated with liver cancer. So that's the worst case scenario outcome possible. So what we find is the differences in the fatty liver disease. And when you think about people taking antiretroviral therapy over a lifetime, this could be a really important finding and something that clinicians need to, again, discuss with their patients to make an informed choice on what's best for them.
Yeah. Well, I think there's still so much more. But to round it out, there also is some data about pipeline drugs.
Yes.
And 6LS or lotivibart.
Lotivibart, yes.
Yeah. There's also, you have a new capsid inhibitor that's being trialed and integrase inhibitor being trialed, correct? So, very positive, very exciting. One caveat is there has been some critique about access issues. What are you doing at ViiV to increase access to your new drugs?
Yes, it's a very important question. We have 41 million people living with HIV worldwide. A quarter of those people have a detectable viral load. So when we think about U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable, the very first thing is undetectable. You have to make sure people are undetectable. That's why it's important to continue innovating and to make sure that people have access to these medications, the new things that are coming down the pipeline. So I think at ViiV, we're very proud of our legacy with regards to access. With dolutegravir, we've input the patent into the medicines patent pool very early on. That is enabled around about 25 million people globally to be on dolutegravir-based regimens today. So it's an incredible legacy and something that we will continue to build on. We understand the importance of making sure that innovation is available everywhere and not just in resource-rich settings, right? Because of this unmet medical need that still exists. So it's very early days. Obviously, we're looking at these medications potentially for 6 monthly injections, even if that works out, which will be an amazing thing for patients to have access to. But it's early days. So we will work through the access issues as we always do with the medications that we bring to the market. Cabotegravir is another example. We also included that patent into the medicines patent pool early on. So right now, cabotegravir can be made by generic manufacturers for PrEP and for treatment in Africa. And I fully expect that we will continue doing exactly that.
Jean Van Wyk, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can catch everything from Infectious Disease Special Edition.